Sometimes things can seem super logical. I'm sure this was talked about at length within the company. Like, we're going to be able to operate better. People are going to get cheaper hamburgers when it's not at the price surge. So I'm sure there's like a million justifications and conclusions as to why this makes sense. So I don't even think it's a matter of like they screwed up the execution of the PR and people got confused. And now they're mad. I think it's just fundamentally wrong. Like, they overestimated the fact that there's human psychology involved and that humans are not completely logical and rational.
You're about to hear a conversation between two agency owners who collectively have over 30 years of experience helping brands sell millions of dollars. Enjoy the episode.
Today we're going to talk about marketing gone bad, and also I wanted to mention something. It's not doesn't have a lot to do with marketing per se, but I want to mention how Singapore is adjusting to the new AI world and how, sort of what they're proposing to do based on what they're seeing.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember when I lived in China, it was one of those things that it's like, well, if you in China, I was working in China, so I was earning, a salary, a foreign salary in China. But they were saying, if you can get a chance to go to Hong Kong, Japan from here, or Singapore, do so. And then I'm like, oh, why? They're like, well, the three countries, they bring, a unique perspective on Asia, blah, blah, blah. And this is the people the other expats that live in their country. And they were thinking that, yeah, but just to know that you can't be chewing gum. It's like you can chew gum, but you have to be very careful about what you do because you will get cane.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you get cane? It's like, no, I actually got a switch and be a teacher. And you're like, really? And they're like, yeah, that's part of the Singapore. And we had some Singaporeans working in our hotel when I was working in Red Capital Club in China. And the great thing about the Singaporeans were that they spoke like 4 languages. They speak local dialect, Chinese, English, and some of them just spoke either Thai or like any other because they were pretty much trained in the school to be in hospitality. So, and because I think the country actually has 3 different languages. So yeah, that's all for. Tell me about.
If you want, we can start there. So it'll just be something very quick, but basically, I saw in the news, I think it was yesterday or before yesterday, and basically what they're proposing is they're going to subsidize higher level education for people who are over 40 years old. And the reason for that is, and the speech is really interesting, the person gives, and he basically states like, look, this is what's been happening with AI. OpenAI launched ChatGPT. It's changing the world. I thought, by the time we get to video, it'll be a few years, but I was totally wrong. They've launched Sora now. It's not open to the public, but they've launched it. Like, we've seen the evolution of that. And he talks about like different systems, sort of coming online and how fast everything is moving. And he's basically saying like, look, we can't be left behind. And this is a world that's going to continue to evolve and change and move faster and faster with AI. And we need to educate our people again. We need to like retrain them, have them understand what's going on, etc. And so that's why we're proposing we subsidize education for anybody who's over 40. They go back to school, back to learning new things, and they're going to be mixed in with like the younger students. And they're selling that as a positive. Like, you're going to have people with a lot of experience coming back to school, mixing with people who don't have experience but maybe handle the tools a little bit better, and that mix is going to propel us into the future. And that's how Singapore is going to sort of figure out a path forward with this whole AI thing, because he talks about like maybe blocking the country from AI access and how that's really not like a sustainable approach. It's really not going to work. Like, all the other countries are going to adapt it. You're going to be left behind. So the only way forward is to embrace that and learn more and get re-educated, basically. Super interesting.
So they are a country that has, it's a rich country. They can control their population and their people pretty well. I think Um, and this is important because since I think they're ruled by kings. They're not under kingship, right? They are onto a one, not an emperor, but like some sort of like one,
Ruler.
eh, como que un one ruler. Let's say that. So it is kind of like they can tell their people, hey, we are going to do this, and everybody can actually achieve that. I think it's genius because it is true. I mean, they are things that, and I have mentioned this before, like if when I sit down and have a conversation about somebody with like 23 or 24 years old, that they have a lot of new knowledge that I would like to implement to my, day to day. However, they really don't know how to implement it in the day to day because I have the experience that takes it on to like, oh, this is what you have learned. This is where we implement it to make, you know, our company work. Let's just say this in a very small environment. But what it is very interesting about that is that the fact that the government is willing to put money into let's get these people re-educated. So they have to have some sort of, is it everybody? How are they going to do the classes? Is it going to be, have they just proposing the idea right now? They're putting it out there and they're bidding on it, or
I don't know. I know it's news. I think it's something new. I think it's at this point it's still just a proposal. But I think they're likely to do something like that. Maybe not exactly that, but and I'm not sure what the specifics are, right? Like I don't know if it's a subsidy of 90% of the cost, or is it like what does that really mean? But I do know, like I think what's interesting is like the fact that a government is acknowledging the pace of evolution of like these systems, and they want to do something about it, and they're taking a step forward and saying, okay, let's figure out a way to not have our population sort of fall behind with all this. And so it's like the classical approach of like let's just figure out a way to get them educated again. I think that's right. I'm not sure like going back to school is the complete solution to that.
well, I mean, they can also just say we are going to put $5 million into developing, AI training, and we're going to put it on this website that this government can own. You should register with it and then, get that. And then we'll give you a certification of accomplishment that you can take to your employer. They can try to do it like that. Because I was thinking like, I can't go to school right now. And then like, where are you going to leave the kids? That's my first thought, but I think it's a smart thing to just take it from, since it's kind of like the new, like you remember when the internet came out, I didn't really experience much of the internet until I went to college. Because when I was in high school, we did have internet, but it was that AOL modem, kind of style. And then, oh yeah, let me download something from the internet, and it was just like,
Yeah, 25 minutes for like a picture.
yeah, and it's like, oh, I finally got the scores from last night's game. It was
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
really, really, pretty bogus. Then we went to college, and then they were working with Ethernet, and the internet was just much faster. Then the Napster thing came out, and there was just more of like, you gotta get on this, and internet. That's when I really consumed it, but it wasn't like, well, I was consuming. It wasn't like my mom and my father and my sorry, yeah, my father, like they were not really into it until, for them, the first time that they got approached to the internet was like, so you're gonna write an email. What? You're gonna write an email. So you have to sit in a computer and type. Sit on
Yeah.
a computer and type. Yes, this is what everybody's doing nowadays. Well, no, I have my secretary, my administrative assistant who can do it. No, no, no. You gotta learn how to do this because this is the way that we can communicate from moving forward. And also when they were like forced to be like, well, this is what the internet is about, and it wasn't the internet, it was email. They didn't, that was just a concept of where they began to like. So I think it is really, really clever and smart of them to just kind of put it up front. It's like, hey, this exists, this is happening. Get familiarized with this because this will make us. If we get into everybody with this, we'll be more competitive in the long run. So I think
Yeah. Yeah, and
it's really.
the other thing I want to mention later, I think we should go into like what the bad marketing examples are. we should. I want to talk a little bit about agents if we have time today. If not, we can save it for next episode. But I want to talk about AI agents and how that's evolving and what they're going to be able to do in the future, and I think why we're excited about that. But anyway, let's talk about the bad marketing.
Well, so perusing the Instagram, the internet world, there were two stories that I needed to bring up. The first one was Wendy's. They pretty much they announced that they were going to create a system that adapted pricing depending on what time of the day they're really busy and what time of the day they're not really busy, in order to adjust pricing so that when they're really busy, the hamburgers might be a little bit more expensive, so that kind of to deter people from going to the lines. And the structure is, we can do a better supply chain management if we can actually increase pricing with demand. And then when it's like a lower time, then they can actually make the product cheaper in order for them to increase demand during that time.
Of course, but you think,
So
my question is, let's say the hamburger right now is $3.99.
yeah,
Are they going to lower it to $1.50 when there's no people, or is it going to just be like?
well, that was a concept. That was a concept. I mean, so on paper, what you want is your, let's call each one. This is a machine, right? So you want your supply chain to work. You standardize, like saying, okay, we are not working at 100%. We're working at 70%. When we're working at 70% is when we're making the most profit, right?
Yeah.
So let's try to make everything at 70%. Of course, if it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon, everybody's hungry, lunch rushes, huge lines. People, some people don't get their French fries the way that they order them. My baconator has no bacon. You have a plethora of problems, a plethora of things. People don't like making lines, etc. So they thought, well, if we increase that baconator to, from 325 to, let's say, 340, we might make more money around that time. But the idea of them is to try to make that 100%, supply to kind of lower. This is also, I mean, that their studies is like, well, less stressed people, they work better. They have all these data that is,
Of course.
of course, like, I mean, it is Wendy's. This is not like some rinky dink like burger joint that is doing this. There's actually
Yeah.
in Chicago there is a bar that is called like Wall Street or something. I remember that.
Oh,
If there
yeah.
was like you've heard of this.
Rose, yeah.
Yeah, if there was too much demand for gin and tonic, then gin and tonic will go more expensive, and then bourbon will go down, so that people would. But that was part of the theme.
Of course,
that's what
it's part of the game, and it's sort of
part of the
that way. Yeah.
But dude, the internet destroyed it because they were like, okay, so are we? All the memes pretty much came out with like, Wolf of Wall Street. It's like, what time is the best time to like, get a bacon in here? And then people were like, look, I don't eat at Wendy's because I eat at Wendy's because someone is a necessity that is close to me during lunchtime, and I just need to squeeze this. Like the last thing is that you price gouge me because it is just not more convenient to you. And of course, everybody just started talking about, well, I want to pay $12 for a bacon eater ever. I think I would pay $4 for it. And it is also like the product to the demand. What it is, and I guess they came out and they didn't really explain that how much the increases would be, or what would be the increasing, or what would be, the actual goal. But everybody was just destroying it online. They were saying like, this is the stupidest thing ever. So why would I go somewhere that why would I choose Wendy's rather than going to McDonald's when I know that my McDonald's combo pricing is going to be this consistent anyway?
Yeah, it feels like, well, there's the mistake probably of not being very clear in the PR statement and everything they're saying. Like by not being very clear, you open up the gates to everybody speculating and saying, "I'm not paying $25 for a hamburger." So I think there's a mistake there.
It's definitely. So when you deal with pricing, you deal with many things, including marketing, just in general, right? So the PR team, and we'll put in this world PR and marketing somewhat, sisters from the same, like they're brothers and sisters, very, very close together. Um, so if I have somebody that is in the PR world and they hear me talking right now, they'll probably yell at me if I don't explain it this way, but they're very, 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 very together. I think that there was a very touchy subject, not only to the PR team that's failed, but also to the marketing team, to explaining, look, if we're going to do this, we either jump in on the cause of effect of it right away and explain it clearly, and then say, these are the benefits of it. Because I told you, like, there's a lot of benefits on trying to make the machine work in an optimal course. That is everybody's gonna get their French fries done the right way. That could have been the way to approach this. But yeah, they definitely they missed the mark with the pricing on the marketing side, and then also on the PR side of this one. I still think that for the product, I'm not, You're also talking about a country that is going through some sort of, like, lighting is going through some inflation and things like that. That also, also affects this content. But
Yeah.
what are your thoughts?
I think we've talked about this before. It's like sometimes things can seem super logical, and you can see, like, I'm sure this was talked about at length within the company. Like, we're going to be able to operate better. We're going to, people are going to get cheaper hamburgers when it's not, at the price surge. So I'm sure there's like a million justifications and conclusions, logical addresses as to why this makes sense. So I don't even think it's a matter of like they screwed up the execution of the PR and people got confused. Now they're mad. I think it's just fundamentally wrong. Like, it just feels like they overestimated the fact that there's human psychology involved and that humans are not completely logical and rational. So you can think about all these different, like, from A to Z and how we get there and all the steps and everything. It makes total sense to you. And then there's human psychology mixed in. So it's what you were saying, right? It's like, oh, there's inflation in the country. There's all these things happening. Gas prices are going up. And then all of a sudden, these places that in my mind have always been like, this is a cheap option that tastes good, and that's why I go there and it's fast. Now it's like, now I never know the price I'm getting. You just added, uncertainty to something I need at the moment. I think it probably works for Uber really well, and maybe for other companies, maybe because they built it in from the very beginning or from close to the very beginning, and people maybe have other options and say, okay, well, listen, I'm just going to walk, or I'm going to get the subway, or people get used to it. Like, oh, if it's from this time to this time, you're going to be paying a lot more. But it feels like the whole concept behind the fast food chain is, cheap, fast, and delicious.
I do bring it back to marketing, because it's like you need to know your customer very, very well, and you need to understand, like, it's, again, this is kind of like, I don't want to say like, finance and in accounting. I'm just thinking of days, so people definitely brought up the system and all that stuff, and they went through the top people of Wendy's. They even went to probably, let's just say, they went to the top people when this deal was presented and all that stuff, and they decided to do this and this announcement, and they did this announcement very exciting. This is like, oh, this is going to be exciting, and then there's just like, I don't know, that marketing room where somebody's going to be like, no, you do understand, as you're saying before, this is a burger, fries, and a drink. That you also have other options that you can also have that I don't think that is really going to make me take my break lunch, because normally it goes between 12 to 1. I'm not going to tell my boss, hey, I'm sorry, I can't eat at
2 p.m.
in the meeting at 3 p.m. because that's the time when I'm going to lunch. So there is just this, as you say, it's just the beginning of, like, well, Uber definitely went with that system from the beginning, so you're going to get adapted to it. It makes sense. Yeah. But with this one, it's just like,
and it's also probably a different target market, like Uber, at the end of the day, is kind of expensive. Like, there's a lot of people are like, no way, I'm taking Uber. Like, that's crazy expensive.
It all depends on who you talk to, because people are like, yeah, I don't need to buy a car. I don't need to get anything.
That's a different audience. Yeah.
This is an argument, but yeah.
Yeah. But the people that are like working, two jobs to keep the lights on, I mean, they're not taking Ubers. Like these guys are taking the subway, the bus, like they're other modes of transportation. So it's like a different audience. The young kid who's working at, I don't know, BCG in New York, he's got enough. He'll pay for Uber. He'll go ride an Uber and go and party and do all these things. I just feel like it's maybe, and we'll see how this plays out. But it feels like Wendy's sort of
No,
under
they
maybe thought more about themselves than they did about like what is the response going to be.
because no, they already. I think they already came out with a backtracking. Like that, the story broke out like 2 days ago, and yesterday, and then today. Like Wendy's pretty much, Wendy's pretty much gonna like apologize and they're like backtracking that. They just didn't like it. It was It's just a whole story of like in the whole marketing class where it's like, well, if you're an ice cream shop, you can always increase your pricing during summer because you know that summer is when people eat ice cream. So that on December, then you make it very cheap because you know the time to make ice cream. You're like, but then at the same time, then why would people really fall in love with just the consumption of that ice cream anyway? They actually were planning on doing with sodas, with Coke machines. They were thinking of increasing pricing during the summer, and then because people will be drinking. So this is
Yeah.
in the yeah, this is a concept in the 90s.
Yeah.
Increasing the prices in soda during the summer, lowering during the winter. But then they decided not to go with it because for them, a Coke is a Coke and always a smile. And he was like, oh, good. You understood that it was pretty much like, anytime that you need it, you can always have it.
That's right. Yeah, and like let's just say maybe for Coke is probably the wrong idea as well. But let's just say you're an ice cream shop. You're not super famous. And it's not like a billion people are drinking. I mean, are eating your ice cream every day, right? So it's like a different scale. I don't know. It just feels different to say I'm going to raise my prices in summer lower than in winter. Um, I think that would make sense, and I don't think people would be upset about that, and I think people would understand it, and I think it also reduces your uncertainty. Like I know, like once I know the price, that's the price. I think part of the problem with these dynamic pricing is it's like a lottery. So you're adding all these uncertainty to the customer. Like I don't know, I'm going to go to Wendy's, but like, is it going to be $3? Is it going to be $2? Is it going to be 10? I don't know.
Well, I agree too. Yeah, and people are also price conscious too. Like,
Yeah,
okay, so how much do you pay for that? 4.99 is what I don't know. It's what Happy Meal runs over now. 4.99. Oh, really? I got it for 3. And you're like,
yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
happy that you.
it just feels different. It feels totally different to not.
The dynamic pricing.
No,
Look, even with the pricing increase, when we do pricing increase, where I have a friend, a fly, hanging out around here. So if you see me doing like ninja motions, it's because of that. Sorry. Um, no, so for example, when we are one of our clients have a product and it's a e-commerce store and you pretty much buy the product in e-commerce. And yeah, creating their product, creating your product has gotten more expensive. So they said, look, let's announce ahead of time to our current following group and the people who are completely involved with us in our brand, who has helped us grow our brand, that we will be doing a price increase so that they are aware if they want to stock up with the product, go ahead and do it. It works well. It works well. It has that goodwill to it. Plus, also, it's going to go up, and it's not going to be dynamic where it's like, hey, you know what, we went up and now we're going to go down. Like it's not that's not the plan. The plan pretty much is we have to increase because we have to do it. Like it's not the plan. And people understand that. But with the concept of the fast food thing, just
yeah, it's just different, man. It's psychologically, it's just different. And I'm sure Wendy's tested this, and they asked people. And I mean, these guys are probably very thorough. But it just feels psychologically, it just feels different than just Uber. Uber, I check on my phone. I have enough money. I usually pay for it. I check on my phone. It's way too expensive. I open up another app. I take a cab. I figure something out. Wendy's. I mean, I don't check my phone just to understand whether or not I should go to Wendy's. Like, I'm going there because I know it's cheap, delicious, and fast. Like, it's the same thing with McDonald's and all the rest. Like, people pick and choose, but it's at the end of the day, those are the three things I'm sort of looking for. And now you're raising a big question mark on cheap.
Oh, well, I mean, this is a legit thing, sure in Colombia, but here in the United States, I mean, dude, before with $20, you could get, at McDonald's and well, you could probably get food for three people, a kid and two adults with like a price of 20. Right now we're hitting, 32 to get something like that.
Yeah.
And you're not ordering anything, you are ordering coffee. You're ordering the burger with the fries, drink, burger, fries, and drinks, and the kids meal.
Yeah.
What happy, or is it just a kids meal? That's up to you. But yeah, fast food is it's getting to a point that it's like, what, this is not affordable, and it's gonna and now let's add the psychology of 2020s, where this is it's not just affordable, but this is more of a treat, because I know that eating burgers every day is just not good for me anymore.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I,
yeah,
I I also think like it's interesting because and I think it's a good thing in the end for Wendy's. I mean, it's a bad thing that they did this, but it's a good thing that like they're big enough and people care enough to have
oh
backlash. Because somebody else might do this and people just say like I just stopped going. Like I go somewhere else now. It's like when Coke launched its new Coke, remember back in the day? This is
yeah,
this big thing and then people there was a lot of backlash, people writing Coke, like what the hell's going on? Why'd you switch the flavor? That means people care. And I think the positive side of all this, for the people at Wendy's is, people care enough to say, look, this is a bad call.
yeah. Well, and it was good that they put it out there. They didn't, they heard the consumers, and they're pretty much making now, like, not political politics, but they're like, what, we're not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
It's sad because they were investing a lot of money into it, but
Yeah.
so yeah, and the whole concept would be that you would get to that where you order, um, and those dynamic menus would just change depending on the time. So
Jesus.
that was the concept.
You're in line, and if it's long, by the time you get there, it might be even more expensive. Talk about
Well, yeah,
Jesus.
it's like, hey, you're like dating a girl like in high school, then you're like, maybe I can take you out to eat food, but only in 20 hours or 45. So you're gonna have $20. It's like,
You lose your hunger as you get closer. You're like, well, you know what? I was gonna have a hamburger, but now I'm just gonna have fries. Anyway.
if we get half an hour more, that's one. The other thing that I saw that was just marketing gone bad, and it's actually really like, I always thought of it as like something that people should do. It's the Willy Wonka experience,
In
where
Britain,
pretty
right?
much the story goes that there is these people that sold online an immersive Willy Wonka experience, $45 a ticket. That pretty much meant to take people into this place to have a Willy Wonka experience with a chocolate river, candy pretty much everywhere. Willy Wonka, some Oompa you get the whole
Yeah.
other Willy Wonka. Plus also that new movie, which I haven't seen, but I heard it's really good. So you get the whole Willy Wonka experience. Great advertisement, like they did the posters and everything leading up to it with a great AI design, and it just looked very, very creative and all that stuff. You get there, and the place was just a warehouse with a bouncy house and just completely just crap. Like, I mean, the photos are just worth watching. It's hilarious. It's just so sad. It's like a really bad garage with like some really big like playground and like some plastic like it was some plastic lollipops, and it's just horrible. And yeah, I mean it was the story goes that pretty much the whole conception of the event, through the marketing portion, through the planning, the money, the pricing, to getting the event done, everything was done through AI.
Oh,
So it was
really?
like they were following a script or what the AI told them to do,
Wow,
and that they
really?
used. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So it became one of these things where the AI would say something like, "Oh, if you're gonna have, where can we fit 200 people at a certain times, and our capacity is 200 people, but how can we get it so that it could go, these many hours and all that stuff?" So all that data was just pretty much given to them by the AI. They say data such as if you have 200 people, let's say 180 people get in 1 hour, then 40 people leave, 40 people come back, and then you can actually have this thing all running. So all that data pretty much was provided with the AI, but all these things are correct. But what they didn't know, it's that, okay, so what is the type of entertainment that people really need? What is it that they're looking for? Where can we find, the people who really know how to provide security, like things that the AI just does not know because it's an event and there's a lot of human concept to it. So yeah, they ended up being a fiasco. It's what's the word that you were saying? It's
Scam,
just
scam.
it ended up being like, scam. They did return the money to people, but people were just
Oh, they did
livid.
return the money.
Yeah, they did return the money.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't like a fire festival, but it was like a fire festival, style where
Yeah.
you promise them everything and the people actually do spend the money and they get there and it's just, horrible story.
And it's super disappointing for the kids too.
Oh yeah, imagine for the kids and the adults and the whole concept of like we're just gonna do a top off of these, we'll just do an amusement park pop up,
Yeah.
it was just not
Yeah.
completely not done the right way. I mean, it's silly to think about it, but for example, Disney can let's not talk specifically about Disney ticket pricing. We all know how it is. But Disney they can afford to pay those prices because those castles did cost them to put there and all that millions and millions of dollars. You know. But these people are just trying to like get an event, church a buck and then say that they're going to give you the whole experience and then they just fall short. It was just the pictures are just so funny.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, it's obviously most businesses would like to have lots of revenue and very little costs so that everything goes to profit. But there comes a point where it's counterproductive because then you're like a one shot wonder. And if you're going to do it as a scam, sure, like that, that's a different story. But if you want a sustainable business, you want to invest in like the execution of everything so that word spreads, so that your marketing is cheaper because people are spreading the word for you and they're coming back. And then if you're doing it every, once a year in Glasgow and then once a year in London, whatever.
Oh yeah, it is a circus. It is a circus style concept. It's kind of like the Van Gogh exhibit that they did. You go, you find a place, you set up the Van Gogh room, blah blah blah. People go, you look. That was a really cool immersive experience. You go there, you do that. Okay, I was happy with that payment. It was worth the money. Then you move, take all your circus and move it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that concept definitely works.
Yeah.
And I think that's what everybody expected.
Obviously, like you don't have any business now because you've scammed a bunch of people, and then, like, sure, we're gonna make a bunch of profit. Like in your calculation, you say, well, the bouncing castle is this much, and this is all my revenue. This all goes to profit, but it's just like such a bad strategy. Obviously, you have to have more on some level of margin,
Feel
but
bad for Willy Wonka in general. This is just not good for its name.
that's true. Yeah, that might actually make it worse for everybody else who tries to use the brand. I wonder if they're paying royalties to the people who own the brand. Um, that's probably another story. But yeah, it's just a shame, that you can you can spend so much time and effort executing on the marketing and then not back up the product. And I think one of the mistakes a lot of marketers make is to focus just on awareness and what most people call marketing, which is like running ads and events and doing all these things to get people sort of aware and interested in the product,
Like,
where maybe you need to spend more time in like, let's fix the product, let's make it really good so that when we do all this and people come in and actually, consume the product, then they go away. And then each person is a marketing, ambassador to the brand because they're all recommending it to their friends because we spend so much time and effort in actually making the product really good. I think that's often super overlooked. It's just like fix the product or service, make it really good, and then whenever you pour gasoline onto the marketing efforts, then they really work.
Yeah, it comes back to the whole, if they build it, if you build it, it will come. And here it's like, if you build it, it will come with marketing, kind of thing. Like if you build it, it will
Yeah,
come. You have to have it. You have to have it. And
sure.
you can't fire, again, the fire culture was that. You pretty
Yeah,
much let's just sell the tickets and then we'll sell the tickets and we'll make so much money. But then at the time to hire people, fly people, sit up the people and all that stuff, we'll just pay it and get it done. But I have worked with another agency, in Venezuela and Urbalan. Their price was bad, and in one time they was like, look, the problem is that the client doesn't understand sometimes that it takes one person 9 months to make a baby. You cannot make a baby in 1 month because you have nine people working at it. And it's true. You can't, you have to do the time, get it together, put it together, and then do the fire festival and then get the people there rather than, oh no, we just need the money first. Because then even though you can have the money, and it's like, okay, I'll just throw all this money at these people. And it's like, look, I only have 24 hours in a day to accomplish this. And the last thing that you want me to do is to try to set up a whole thing within 24 hours because you're now creating risk for everybody working on this thing.
yeah, yeah. No, and they should have canceled it. Like they could have said, "Look, we're canceling. Don't fly out. Like, don't do all these things." They didn't do that. Anyway, the other thing, I saw a quote recently that I think sums all of this up, and it basically said something, and I'm paraphrasing, right? And it was like, like if you're a good marketer, and you have a good product or service, that's the kind of thing that helps you build a long-lasting company. But if you're a good marketer and you have a bad product or service, all you're really doing is delaying the death of the company. So you're because you're getting new people into the wheelhouse, every week or every month, but then they're churning. They're not staying. They're not preferring friends. They're not like nothing else is happening. And so you're constantly trying, like it's like a boat that has a leak. You're always trying to like get the water out, and you're never done. Versus like if you have an exceptional product or service and then you market it really well, there comes a point where you can actually reduce your marketing costs, you know, a lot,
It
and then still
is.
have the product.
Well, what you're saying is the young agency, the young marketing agency dilemma, which is your product is not good. I can market it and I can market it the best, and I need the money. So let me do my best work on your product, but it is it's grabbing poop and putting your product is poop. We can make it shiny, we can make it hooks and try to sell them as earrings, but it's still poop, and it's difficult. Or even the concept of like your product is not unique. Like when you tell a client, like, hey, your product is not unique. It is the same product. It just has a little bit more bells and whistles. It is a bicycle. The only difference that your bike now has a light and it has a bell, but it is still a bicycle. And there are other bicycles selling out there. No, 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 no. The product is different. The product is different because it's the bell. It's the bell that pretty much goes in the bicycle, and it is the bell. And people still are buying the bicycle that you have the bell. And it is this thing where yeah, like a lot of times as a marketing agency needs to grow and understand that like you need to get a good product to sell in order for it to be like you can do really good marketing, but you need to find yourself products that you probably believe on them, because if not, it's just very very hard to grow.